You belong on every ground your feet grace, so don't ever feel out of place. Take up space and belong. This earth is your birthplace. Hey loves, welcome back to the Sensual Genius channel. In this video, I'm going to give you a review of Heatwave featuring Kat Graham, Merritt Patterson, Kayla Wallace, Sebastian Roche, Roger Cross, Aaron. I looked up this name. It said, and I got three different pronunciations. It was Buckles, Buchos, and I forgot how the third one was pronounced, but we gonna go with Buckles because I just like how it sounds. Cardi Wong and David Lewis. So it starts off with a flashback of Claire watching her landlords, and Claire is played by Kat Graham, watching her landlord's house burn after she pays him back for being responsible for her losing her parents in a house fire when she was young. 11 years later, she's sitting in her house watching the news broadcast about the heat wave across the country. Then it goes to her walking the streets of her city until she comes across a woman in a trench coat and hat talking on the phone. She goes inside a hotel and goes to the pool after a friend of hers, Manny, checks to see if it were vacant. While she's staring at her phone, a woman shows up, strips down, and gets into the pool. She's about to leave, but the woman tells her not to leave, but join her. However, she still leaves. The next day, she's at work. She sees the mayor and asks her coworker if she can get an interview with the mayor, but he basically tells her no. She leaves and ends up in the elevator with him. The mayor's name is Scott Crane. Uh, the yeah. When she approaches him about her plans, he ignores her and walks off. The next day, she comes across this guy, Arlo Leonard, and asks if he's a serial killer, but he tells her that he's a cop. They go into the bar for a drink, and the woman, Eve Crane, who was at the pool, is there. So Eve is the wife to the mayor. They talk, and the woman is flirting with Claire. Claire reveals that Arlo is her fiance, and they're role playing by pretending they are strangers in a bar. The woman asks if she wanted to make him jealous by sneaking off together. Claire turns her down and walks away. You can tell she likes her, but she's trying to play it off. Arlo and her walk outside, and his partner is getting into a fight with some guy, so their night is cut short. Claire returns to the pool and Eve is there. They get close to each other and go to the hotel room and have sex. They go out on the balcony and have drink. Claire asks Eve what she does for a living, and Eve vaguely answers her question. They both are down with having a fling, I guess, and not wanting to be defined by anything. Then they kiss and fool around. The next day, Claire is at work in a meeting. She takes the opportunity to talk to them about the docks she wants to turn into a boardwalk. Scott Crane tells her to send him the details, and she tells him that she did, exposing her coworker in the process. I did send you the details, and I wanted to talk to you, but this person, they told me not that I couldn't. Scott tells her to give him the details directly, which she does. They go to the docks, and she shows him her plans for it. Then they go to the bar to have a drink. They talk a bit about her background. He sympathizes with her. They get to know each other a bit, and he encourages her to never let anyone shame her about her past. He makes her promise she won't, and she does. Then the light goes out in the bar, and he lights a candle. The heat wave shuts the power out in the city. Claire and Eve is lying together in a bed and talk about a memory she has about being scared of the dark as a child, to the point that her sister started a fire in the house to protect her. She opens up about her sister and her parents dying in a house fire because her landlord failed to keep their house up, and she gets emotional. They cuddle. The next day, she gets to work and gets told by her hater coworker that she's on Scott's desk and he was moved somewhere else because their paper, I think they're I can't remember. It's not reporters or nothing like that. It's like they work for him. They work for like this company or whatever, and like they come up with different ideas for him to do or whatever. And the coworker was basically cock blocking. He's mad about it, but because she went over his head. So he's more than likely her boss instead of her coworker. Like he was over her. She shows concern, but he tells her to forget about it because they're not friends and she doesn't know anything about him and walks off. The scene cuts to Eve laying on the bed while Claire is getting dressed. Eve asks her to play hooky with her and she tells her that she can't because her boss is happy with her and she wants to keep it that way. Claire tells Eve that she finally feels like her life is heading somewhere good and Eve says hers too. Then it cuts to Scott in his office, talking on the phone, and Claire walking in on him to see if he needed anything before she leaves, but he tells her he's good. She asks him if he's okay, and he says yes, but his social butterfly wife can't fit him into her calendar. At this point, I feel like Eve is Scott's wife instead of his sister, like she told Claire, because she did tell Claire that she was his sister. You know, they got the same last name. You don't really know what to believe. But I'm pretty sure that's going to start some drama. That's what I said in my notes. Scott tells Claire he wants to throw a party for the staff at his place and invites her to come. She asks if he wants her to organize it, and he tells her to leave it to his wife so she'll have something to do. So I think she's like his assistant or something like that. Before she leaves, he thanks her. It's starting to seem like he sees her like a daughter and she sees him like a father. It goes to the party. Claire shows up at the party with her coworker and Scott introduced her to his wife, Eve. I knew it. I knew that was his wife or whatever, but she was trying to play it off. Claire is shocked and disappointed. Eve asks Claire what it's like to be her husband's assistant, but Scott tells Claire not to respond because they don't discuss work. Claire asked why, and Eve directed that question to Scott, who dodged it. He tries to change the subject by asking Claire if she was seeing someone. Claire tells him she was, but they turned out to be a dishonest asshole throwing subliminals at Eve. Scott asks Claire would she talk about work with her guy, and Claire tells him no. Scott then turns to Eve and tells her, see, that's how it should be. Eve fixes Claire a drink and they all toast. Claire leaves the party with her coworker who asks about Genevieve, which is Eve. Her coworker says that she's such a cliche housewife. Claire asks her coworker, played by Kayla Wallace, this is another coworker from the other coworker, how long they've been together, and she said ever since Scott's first wife disappeared and was later declared dead. Claire was disturbed by the news. Eve calls her once she's home, but she doesn't answer. Instead, she has a flashback of their interactions. It cuts to Claire in the gym and Eve pops up on her. Claire tells her to leave. Eve says she's been losing her mind since Claire wasn't returning her calls. She tries to apologize to Claire and tells her marriage isn't working out, but Claire isn't buying it. Claire asks her if Scott knows about the condo and she tells her yes, but he thinks she rents it out. She says it's the only thing that's hers. Eve tells Claire she's falling for her and Claire marches away angrily. Then it cuts to Scott and Claire talking on the docks. Scott and Claire are talking and he tells her that the halfway house was his first wife's passion project and it became his as well. And her first wife's name was Annabelle. Claire tells Scott that he's grateful to his first wife for creating the halfway house because it helped her when she got into trouble. Scott asked Claire if she had fun at the party, and she told him she did. Then he asked her what she thought about Genevieve, and Claire said she was nice. Lying. Scott laughed and told Claire that love was deadlier than fire. Twice the heat, 10 times the destruction. Then he opens up about his relationship with Genevieve. He tells her that once upon a time, Genevieve used to look at him with love in her eyes, but now things were different. He said now he doesn't even know what she does all day. She could be sleeping with someone else or something, but it's okay because no matter what, he's never letting her go. To me, it sounds like a threat, like he's low-key threatening her or whatever. It's like he has a feeling that they have been having an affair, and in a roundabout way he's threatening her like, I'm never letting her go, like, so just know you can never have her, type of thing. He said if he loses Genevieve, she might come after his really valuable property, so like losing her wasn't an option. Genevieve shows up at Claire's house and they have sex again. Claire tells Genevieve that Scott doesn't respect her, and he calls her his property. He calls her his property, and it made her mad that she couldn't defend her. Then Claire tells Genevieve that she loves her and that she was right. Their relationship was never casual. Genevieve tells Claire that they have to be careful because it could get ugly. She says Scott doesn't like to lose, and Claire tells her that she doesn't either. So they continue their relationship even though it's dangerous, sneaking around behind Scott's back. And I kind of feel like Genevieve low-key loves having the competition. She loves putting people in dangerous situations because she knows her husband is crazy, and it gives her satisfaction having somebody who would go toe-to-toe with her husband, because she finds it fun. That's the only fun she has since she's bored and unhappy in her marriage. So she thinks that playing with other people's lives is fun. Genevieve tells Claire that she's going out of town to Seattle. Claire's co-worker sees her and Genevieve kissing in the elevator. Claire starts to freak out. Scott is having an argument with somebody on the phone and is disturbing the office. The co-workers are looking at Claire with suspicious eyes. Scott sends Claire a text message that says, "I know." It's vague, but she automatically assumes it means he knows about her and Genevieve's secret affair. Claire shows up at Scott and Eve's house to see what's going on, and the door is left wide open, so she rings the doorbell and calls out his name to see if he's there. She walks around the house and calls out their name, and no one is home. To me, it looked like a Jeep pulled up behind her when she first pulled up. While she was leaving, the camera pans to blood splatters on the wall. Scott and Eve is MIA. The next day, she shows up at work, and Scott's friend asks if she's heard from him, and she says no. Then her co-worker, played by Aaron, walked up to her and apologized for how he treated her, then told her to apologize to Scott for whatever she did. A detective shows up, and Benny, played by David Lewis, asked Claire for a word, and he escorted her to see the detective who's questioned her about Scott. Claire runs into the guy played by Cardi Wong. He was the guy that she was pretending that she was talking to in the bar the day she met Eve. She admits that she was sleeping with Scott's wife. Something is telling me that it could be the co-worker, the one that got fired from being his assistant. I don't know. I feel like it could be anybody because Scott was a wealthy man and he was surrounded by people who could have wanted him dead because they wanted what he had. Eve finally calls Claire and says that she was on her way back and that she heard that Scott was missing. So Genevieve is out of town, so she has an alibi. So to Scott's disappearance. So that's very convenient, right? She asked Claire what she told the detective, and Claire told her that she told the detective that they were sleeping together. Eve told Claire that she did the right thing and that she shouldn't worry. She told her she loved her, and then they got off the phone. The detectives discuss Scott's first wife's death, and they talk about Eve's potential involvement in the wife's disappearance. Eve pops up at Claire's house and she tells her that she feels guilty, and Eve says she has nothing to hide and she has nothing to worry about because Scott's disappearance has nothing to do with them. The detectives are questioning Eve and Claire. They bring up Eve's childhood. It really seems like someone is setting her up. I don't really know what Eve said during her interview with the detectives, but I think they're clearly setting her up. They're setting Claire up, and I think that it's more than one person. That's what my note says. The detective showed up at her house and she ran. She was speaking on the phone with someone. I think it was the coworker that didn't like her because she stole his job, and he told her to run and that he has had a public defender before and it didn't turn out well. I kind of feel like that was bad advice to give somebody in a situation like that, which makes me suspect him. The detective that she ran into at the beginning of the movie told her not to run, that it was a bad idea for her to run. Claire was talking to her concierge friend about Eve, and he tells Claire not to trust her and that he thinks that Eve killed Scott's first wife. Claire called Eve to ask her what she told the cops. Eve told her that she told the cops that they were crazy if they think Claire had something to do with Scott's disappearance, but I think she's lying. Claire asked Eve to take her to the police station. She told her she was scared, but I think she's luring her into a trap. Eve told her that she'll take her, and I think that Eve is eager to take her because she wants her to take the blame for Scott's disappearance. First, Eve rushes to where Claire asked her to go. Then she gets an alert telling her that her condo has been unlocked, so she makes a U-turn and goes toward the condo because that's where Claire is. Claire searches for proof that Eve is the one responsible for Scott's disappearance. She finds some evidence that suspects Eve. She calls the number on a flyer she finds in a drawer and hears the phone ringing in the hallway. Eve goes inside her condo to look for Claire. Claire confronts Eve, and Eve tries to make her seem crazy. She gets the proof she needs and leaves the condo. The detective finds evidence that was planted in Claire's apartment. Claire goes through all the evidence she got on Eve and makes a phone call and learns that Eve planned everything that happened. Claire goes back to look at camera footage at the hotel and sees Eve plotting on her from the beginning. The detectives visit Eve to connect the dots, but she denies their claims. The detectives end up at Claire's house where they find the murder weapon and they find a shirt with blood on it. However, Arlo isn't buying that Claire is the killer, but Detective Parker is. Claire ends up getting help from her concierge friend again. Then she ends up doing some digging and she finds out that Eve had been making deals behind Scott's back with real estate and that she has a lot of money that she had been collecting over the years of being with him. Then the detectives goes to tell their boss what they found and they think that Claire is the killer. However, Arlo is still not buying it. Claire calls Arlo and tells him that she's found some evidence that makes Eve a suspect, but she needed some more time to find more evidence. After a while, her and Arlo meets up and they have a conversation. She tells him that she believes that Detective Parker is the one that either killed Scott or was Eve's accomplice. It was the only thing that made sense to her. So she called Detective Parker and she told him that she had been doing some digging and she believes that he made a deal with Scott when Scott killed his first wife, and she asked him to make a deal with her. After the phone call, her and Arlo go to the detective's house and they sit and watch him to see if he was going to make the deal with her. He leaves out of his house and gets in his truck, and Arlo starts to feel some type of way about things, and he tells Claire that he thinks it's a bad idea for them to be together and for them to follow Detective Parker, and before they could move, Detective Parker was at the driver's window of Arlo's car, and he shot Arlo and kidnapped Claire. Detective Parker takes Claire to his abandoned warehouse and ties her up. Eve comes to the warehouse and the detective tells her that he killed his partner and that Claire was her mess to clean up. In the midst of talking to Eve, he admits that he did help Eve clean up Scott's first wife's murder. He said that Eve threatened to tell on him if he didn't help her this time. The hater co-worker, Lane, shows up and tells Eve that now he has to do her dirty work because she really loves Claire, so all of them were in on it like I suspected. Like it was the co-worker, it was Claire, Eve, and it was Detective Parker all in on it. I figured they were because of how things were playing out. Claire figures out that Lane is the one that killed Scott, which I thought from the very beginning when we realized that he disappeared because him apologizing to her was weird to me because he had no reason to apologize to her. Lane admitted to killing Scott and that he was just an appetizer to killing Claire. He wanted to kill Claire because Claire ruined his father's life. His father was the landlord that Claire tried to kill out of revenge. He's a racist, spoiled brat, basically. He's racist. And of course, Cat Graham is black. I don't know if she's mixed or not, but she has black in her. Lane tried to kill Claire, but Eve intervened and knocked him out so Claire could get away. Claire kills Lane and Eve kills the detective. Eve tells Claire she set the whole thing up to get rid of Scott. She wasn't happy with her life with him because he wouldn't allow her to be an equal partner in the business and marriage. Eve gives Claire the play-by-play of what happened, then admits that she didn't plan to fall for her in the midst of helping Lane ruin her life. She tells Claire they could work things out and that she loves her. Claire tells her she loves her too. Eve tells Claire whatever she wanted to do next was up to her, so Claire breaks up with Eve and Eve gets arrested for her husband's murder. Claire wins her case against the city and gets a check from them. She plans to buy a property with her new wealth. Her lawyer tells her about one she knew about and she decides to check it out. It ended with her getting the justice she deserved. I give the movie 4 out of 5 stars. It was pretty good. It was fast paced and it was a lot of moving parts and a lot going on. But it was suspenseful, even though I kind of figured out what happened and like who was responsible for Scott's death or whatever. It was still good to watch because I don't think that there's nothing wrong with a movie or a story that's predictable. It becomes a problem when it doesn't play out good. Like, if I can predict it, I'm cool with that. But if it doesn't play out good, then that is when it becomes a problem to me. But it was a good movie. I think I watched it on Netflix. It was either Netflix or Tubi. I'll check and put it in the description or put it like on the screen or whatever. But I think it's worth watching. I think y'all should check it out. It's very suspenseful, like I said. But if you've seen it, let me know what you think about it. And if you're going to watch it after you see this review, come back and let me know what you think. When you watched it before you saw my review, did you figure out who was the killer? Were you right? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about this review. And also, let me know what other content that y'all want to see from me. I love doing these reviews, but there's a lot of other things that I want to do that will be coming soon. Like I spoke about in one of my previous videos, I was going to start deconstructing old romance movies that we put on a pedestal and kind of model our relationships after to expose the toxicities in them and why we should not put them on the pedestal and model our relationship after them. I'm going to go ahead and write a list, but if y'all have any that y'all can think about that y'all want to see me deconstruct, please put it in the comments so I can put it on my list and I can go back and watch them. But thanks again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see y'all in the next video. Bye. Before you go, check out my website at srgraham.org and subscribe to my mailing list to get exclusive updates on works in progress, other news, and blog posts. Thank you.